Congratulations, you did it. You got the job. You got that promotion you've been working on for a long time. So take a minute and celebrate. But only take a minute, because now you actually have to go and do the job. Now you actually have to go and lead these people who may or may not think you're the right person for the job. Some of them wanted the job and you got it instead. Some of them know where all of your skeletons are. Heck, they helped you hide the bodies. Most of them aren't sure why you got the job and somebody else did, but now it's gonna be your job to go and hold those people accountable, to make sure the work gets done on time, to make sure the quality is there, to hold them to an account that maybe the previous boss never did. It's gonna be your job to make sure and accomplish the mission that you've just been held responsible for through them. And you can't do any of that without their trust. And right now you don't have it. But in this episode, I'll show you how you can get it and how you can keep it long term. Let's jump in. And by the way, if you got promoted a little while ago, years ago maybe even, it's not too late for you, don't worry. Stick around till the end and I'll share a game-changing secret with you. Welcome to Leadership Unplugged, where I'll show you what real leadership sound like. Look, I had to deal with this when I got promoted, and I made a huge mistake, and frankly, it cost me years of progress. It made my life significantly harder because of how I did it incorrectly. But in the years since, I've learned how, and now I've coached dozens of other leaders through it, and I'm gonna share the play with you. And the first mistake that I made, and that most people make when they get promoted here, is feeling like you need to justify why you got the job. Some sense of needing to prove that you were the right hire and the right choice, and some need to vindicate or validate that the right decision was made for you. And so when someone asks, and by the way, somebody may actually ask, you've got to be prepared to handle that situation. I just want to encourage you mentally to recognize you don't know anybody an answer. You literally didn't make the decision to hire yourself. You couldn't tell them probably why you got the job instead of the other person, so don't try. And if they ask, you can literally say that, hey, I actually don't know. I don't know why they promoted me over this person. You can go ask them if you'd like. And if that feels like a cop-out or passive aggressive, it's not. Remember, you literally didn't make the decision. You couldn't tell them, and even if you could, they wouldn't believe it coming out of your mouth. All you can do from this moment on is go earn it. Go earn their respect and their trust and prove to them why it was the right choice. And the best way to do that is just to commit to learning and getting better every single day. Here's how you start. You ask. Look, we're very tempted to come into this new job with all of our bright and shiny ideas. And frankly, those ideas and your vision for what you would do if you were given the opportunity might be what got you promoted, might be what got you this job. But here's a secret that I learned painfully, and many others have as well. It isn't about having good ideas. That's the easy part. The hard part is leading people to execute those good ideas. The ideas are simple, they're cheap. If you've ever tried to initiate some corporate change or some initiative that was driven from on high, you know what I'm talking about. It's very difficult to lead people through changes that they're not bought in on. And building consensus is what we're really talking about. And that's not all about telling people what you're gonna do. No, building consensus is all about helping people along the journey, maturing through the thought process that you've gone through to arrive at the right decision to get there, and letting them contribute to it. To poke it, to prod it, to challenge it, to add to it, to help refine your thinking through them so that when it does come time to drive change, you can steer it confidently knowing they've contributed and they'll feel like they've been heard. That's the game. And if you do it that way, even if they don't agree, they'll feel like their input was heard and valued and thought about. And their recognition that that's what happened is what creates a trust and a bond between you. It means you can steer in directions they may not agree with, but they'll actually be willing to follow. And you'd rather get that resistance out on the front end than down the road after the initiative has been decided upon and you can't get anybody to do anything with it. Look, let me give you an example. When our CEO was promoted a number of years ago to take over the old company that I worked at, he didn't drive any initial changes for months. He just went and rode along with people. He sat next to them at their desk. He listened to calls they were on. He listened to customers and vendors. And he had a few ideas and he would share them here and there, but they were just ideas at that point. He asked a lot of questions about what and why and how they were doing things. And so a few months down the road, when he decided to make some very significant changes, everybody was on board. Sure, they weren't the changes they had recommended, but they knew their ideas had been considered, and that human who sat next to them had listened to them and validated or challenged back with them, not trying to convince them of anything, and that had earned their trust. And for years, he had smooth sailing with all of the executives and leaders because he had earned their trust early on. You can do the same. So what do you actually ask? Well, you ask them, what's working? What ideas do they have? You ask what's not working. Find out what's been going on in their brain that they think should be approached. They might have better ideas than you do. And if they do, you can use those ideas and give them credit along the way. Ask them what they would look to do if they were in your shoes. Share some of your ideas, not as this is what we're going to do, but as I've been thinking about this. What would you feel about that? How would you think about that? These types of questions around the direction you're going to try and steer is going to build consensus and earn you their trust in the long term. And that's the big game that you're trying to play. Hey, if this episode is resonating with you, if you find value in hearing the hard truths about leadership and getting practical plays that you can run with Leadership Unplugged, take a second, click the subscribe button, and come back every week for more episodes. So there's a bit of a game to play when it comes to driving change at a structural level, and getting the input from your people and building consensus is a pretty critical piece of that puzzle. But you're still going to have the difficult conversations. You're still going to have to hold people accountable, challenge them, give them feedback they might not like to hear, shine a spotlight on dark things in the process or their performance that they would prefer stayed in the darkness. How do you do that? Well, once again, you ask. You ask somebody, how do they like to be held accountable? If you need to approach them to share with them something that didn't go the way that it was supposed to, that they did, how would they prefer that? What's worked well in the past and what hasn't for them? How do they like to hear feedback? How frequently? How do they want to be approached about that? If you have to share something that they're doing incorrectly or that you think would be better if it was done differently, how would they prefer that? How are they trying to grow right now? What skills are they trying to develop? What's the future look like for them? If you know these three things, we call these parts of the rules of engagement, the language of leadership. If you know these things about everybody that you lead, these conversations become much easier. The content is still very heavy, but you know how to go and run the play because you've agreed upon it mutually together. Now look, just because you've agreed upon it mutually together doesn't mean it's going to go perfectly. The world is filled with people who will tell you, you can just tell me the hard thing, and in reality, that's not going to be the case. That's okay, but at least they gave you permission. You've broken down that barrier. Reality is, if you had done this more frequently, if you had given people hard feedback, if you had held them accountable before and gotten feedback on it, you would be better at it at this point. You probably haven't though, but that's what we do with the language of leadership and in my academy. We help people practice these skills so that when the time comes to use them, you're already good at them. But all you have to do is go ask these simple questions to learn the rules of engagement so that you can strike up these difficult conversations. So how do you handle this new promotion? Well, first celebrate. Congratulations, you did it. That's important. Don't skip this step. And now the job actually begins. Step 1, remember, you don't have to justify this to anybody. You don't know why you got promoted. Your responsibility is simply to take the responsibility you've been handed and to commit to doing better with it every day, to growing into the leader these people need you to be. That's all you can do. The next step is to go and listen. Ask questions. Get a sense of what they think. Learn what they would have brought to the table. Figure out why your ideas aren't the perfect ideas. And in so doing, earn a tremendous amount of trust from them. Don't be surprised if at the end of all of that, you recognize that your company doesn't need a massive overhaul. Your department doesn't need a brand new software. Don't be surprised to learn it just takes some minor tweaks. And by building consensus, you'll get your people to make those tweaks and follow you in the first steps that you decide are the right ones for the organization. Don't be surprised when that builds an enormous amount of trust either. And then learn how they would like to have the difficult conversations go, because they're gonna happen in your time. You might as well start out by recognizing you're going to have hard conversations with every person that you lead. If you knew how to do so, and you had mutually agreed upon how that was gonna happen when the time came, it'd probably be a lot easier for you. In fact, that's a great chance for you to think about your challenge here. Who can you go practice this on? Who can you go start this on? Who can you go begin with? There's one difficult conversation, one person that you know you're gonna have to have a difficult conversation with. Can you go ask them some of those rules of engagement questions? Take a second, put a note in your calendar, write it down on a piece of paper or something, so you go and do that. Now, as I mentioned earlier, if you've been in this job for a long time, it's not too late to go have this conversation. It is never too late to ask the rules of engagement questions. You just need to figure out how to bridge the gap into the conversation. Here's how you do it. It's a very simple process. All you do is say something along the lines of, hey John, I was thinking about working with you over the last several years, and I realized I missed a pretty important step at the beginning of our relationship. Sorry about that. I would have liked to have done better, but here I am. And I realized I just forgot to ask you a handful of questions that I'd really like to know about you so I can be the best boss possible. Would it be okay if I asked you those questions? Nobody says no to that. A good old-fashioned apology where you recognize I didn't do something I could have that would have helped a lot. Can I do it now? Almost nobody will tell you no. And that's a fantastic place for you to start in your new role. See you in the next one. Hey, if you found this episode helpful, if you're gonna go back and have a tough conversation with somebody and build out some rules of engagements, or you're gonna schedule a ride along to learn a little bit from some of your people because of this, that's a good sign that these videos are helpful for you. So take a second, click the subscribe button, and come back every week for more.